Welcome to Joe's Astrology, and we're back again with Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer will correlate with the soul that desires to create a safe, secure, personal reality in order for its evolutionary intentions to be actualized. The primary structure or form that Mars in Cancer will instinctively orient to in order for this security to be realized is that of family, home, and trusted friends. Now, off the top of my head, I've known a couple Mars in Cancer. I dated one of my first girlfriends was a Mars in Cancer, and I do believe that specifically this person uh, bypassed on me. Not to get too personal, bypassed on me because of this. I was a risk taker. I did a lot. I've gone back and forth on a lot of things. I've never really been stabilized for a long period of time. And when the time came to settle down, in her view, right around the age of 30, I had done something that pretty much put me out. And within 6 months, this person was married and on and on and on, like within a short period of time after I last saw her. And the reason I mentioned that is you have to look at other things in the chart as well, but this is a type of person for sure. It has this Mars in Cancer. I think she had Venus in Virgo. And it just reminds me of that uh, the soul desires to create a safe, secure, personal reality. Like everything was planned, you can't take that kind of risk, et cetera, et cetera. And I knew another person I was roommates with. He had a Mars in Cancer, and his girlfriend was a Mars in Cancer, and they met while I was living there. And now he in his chart wasn't exactly risk averse. He had Venus in Aries, he had a Sagittarius moon, he was an Aquarius sun. I remember him telling me that his girlfriend you couldn't only say certain things around her. And I remember him getting wide-eyed when I would say certain things about things like astrology or the occult. He would be yeah, don't say that, right? When she was around. And she had a stellium in Virgo. And, obviously she wasn't into that stuff to begin with. But, he had that family thing, that Mars in Cancer. And at the end of the day, that's the direction he went. He's married with a kid now. And, more or less all of that adventure, etc., goes into his work now. So not to get off on a tangent, but I thought that was interesting stories here from Mars and Cancer. By extension, this drive reflects the core evolutionary intention of the Mars and Cancer archetype to move from seeking its security needs through external forms or structures to realizing that the security it requires lies within itself. In order for this evolution to take place, the Mars and Cancer person will typically be born into a family situation in which the parents do not meet these projected security needs in some way. See, this is true, but this is what I'm saying. They're not. If that's part of it. That's not all Mars and Cancer people. That might be for some people, because through seeking security needs through external forms or structures versus realizing it within themselves. I think these people have realized it within themselves somewhat, but these are the same people that are going after this home dream life. They get the big house, they move to the bigger house, they have the cars, they have the jobs. And this isn't a judgment. I'm not making a judgment on these people, but I'm saying that they certainly have not mastered the realizing that the security lies within themselves. And nor do I expect any of us or them to do this in this life. Again, only some people will have that really hardcore lesson. In order for this evolution to take place, Mars and Cancer person will typically be born into a family situation. I've seen that with all these people I'm mentioning. Their parents do not meet their projected security needs at all. Divorce, death of parents, etc. I don't have Mars in Cancer, but I actually, now that I think about it, I have Mars conjunct Moon in Aquarius. And the thing is, it didn't matter. It really doesn't matter if. That's why I don't like psychology. Psychology doesn't always go as far enough anyway. Because if I think about my life, Mars Moon conjunction, it wouldn't have mattered if my parents met these needs, etc. I was gonna do what I wanted to do, and again, it comes back to my chart and things like that. Like in a sense, I was doing it to myself. And that's kind of the adventurous archetype as well. So that's why I don't know if that makes sense. I don't want to. I don't. That's why I don't like the whole psychology version of that the parents did it and the deaths in the family and stuff like that. Because, like I said, I was gonna do it. I've been doing it since I was 6 years old, doing stuff. Maybe not extreme stuff, but I mean, I remember now it comes to mind at 5 years old or 6 years old. It had to be five or six. I set a dumpster on fire in my apartment community. Okay, I mean that kind of stuff. And my parents were together. It was just me. They took care of me. They were giving me everything. Anyway. This can manifest in various scenarios, such as emotional conflict between the parents. The child learns that something can go wrong at any moment, having parents who divorce, disruptions with the family, emotional domineering parents towards the child, sexual abuse, etc. So I'm not going to get into all that. I think I said enough. The house that Mars is in, the house that the sign Cancer is in, the house and sign that the moon is in, the sign in the fourth house, and the location of its planetary ruler, and the aspects that these planets form to other planets, and the houses that those planets are in, serve as the primary ways through which the Mars and Cancer person learns how to become inwardly secure. So I said a lot there. You can rewind it. That's the formula right there. As he just said. Everything that has to do with Cancer and Mars. It is through these dynamics that the displaced emotions of childhood are triggered. As such, they serve to progressively make the Mars and Cancer person aware of the causal factors that ignite their emotional states or relations. In this way, emotional self-knowledge takes place over time, a key intention of Mars and Cancer. The phasal relationship between Mars and Pluto will show how this is accomplished. We can do readings as well if you want to get into the specifics, and we can work through this together. Some of these things, we can do this with all of the planets. For those advanced astrologers out there, sexually speaking, the Mars and Cancer person will be born with fundamental fears of insecurity linked with the act of birth itself. The anxiety of separation from the womb of the mother is symbolized by not only the birth moment, but also by the cutting of the umbilical cord. As a result of the separation anxiety experienced at birth, the Mars and Cancer person will exhibit a deep fear of sexual vulnerability, which mirrors the fear of emotional vulnerability relative to trust. Something about the Mars and Cancer person can attempt to totally control their emotional and sexual life. Some other things. So really these, I mean, we kind of put this in the Mars and Cancer. There's probably more, but say Mars and Cancer, Mars and Virgo, Mars and Pisces. We're going to have these, anything in Pisces, Virgo, Cancer can have these disrupted, dysfunctional is the word I'm thinking of. Dysfunctional things that I'm mentioning here. Their sexual needs, sexual energy and needs are directly linked with their existing emotional dynamics. Because the emotional dynamics can be so complex in the Mars and Cancer person, the nature of their sexual dynamics can be just as complex. This is where I think the association with women in this way, being this way, it's not just women. However, because Cancer is ruled by the moon and the moon is associated with the feminine, and Venus is associated with the feminine. I think women get this stereotype, or fall in this stereotype more so than men. But that is not an excuse. As people like to say about astrology, astrology is an excuse. Astrology is not an excuse to do what you continue to do. It's an excuse, it's a tool to understand yourself so that you can get through life more intelligently. However, as the author of this book mentions, often the emotions are stronger than the intellect, which even me, as aware as I think I am, continue to struggle at times in these emotional situations. Mars conjunct Moon, Mars in Cancer. The root issue again is linked with the original anxiety of separation from the womb at birth, and through extension with the various causal factors of emotional problems from childhood. We have all, if you really think about it, have what Mark Passio calls, the occultist Mark Passio calls, what does he call it? Something about, the abandonment issues due to the separation from the creator, which in his, I'm not going to get into what he really says, but we all, technically speaking, if this is true, we all have abandonment issues just by being born here on Earth. So that really trumps that whole psychological stuff about the parents, etc., etc., etc. As a result, men who have Mars in Cancer can have a preoccupation with the breasts of women and a strong orientation to the woman's vagina. Well, I do think that's true as well. That does make sense. Women can have strong oral orientation to the mouth of the man and the male sexual organ. This orientation reflects the child's need to bond with the mother at birth through breastfeeding and the security that this creates in the child. In essence, it also reflects the Mars in Cancer person's desire for the original security of the womb. He talks about a lot of unresolved anger, especially for people who have Mars in Cancer. For some, and for women, this can manifest as psychologically, emotionally, and sexually castrating the man in some way. And in men, it can manifest as sexual power over women. Such men use women as sexual objects in order to build up otherwise weak male self-image. Personally, I don't find myself around these men or women for some reason. For the most part, I think I find myself around decent people or middle of the road type people. Some children who have Mars in Cancer and who have been sexually abused by a parent will desire to attempt to have sex with other children or with a sibling. And that must be something. See, this guy claims that at this point in this writing, it's probably like 15 to 20,000 charts, and like I said, I don't tend to run into these types of people, these extremes, but this guy would have seen a lot of these extremes. Even as an astrologer, I haven't seen anything near to this level. Once the Mars in Cancer person realizes the evolutionary intention of inner security, their emotional and sexual orientation to life will change. Instead of being controlling, domineering, and possessive, they will become supportive, nurturing, and display an incredible emotional empathy that can truly heal the emotions of others. that would be, think of the Mars in Cancer person who has all this, who's gone through therapy and understands it in a different light, reframes everything, etc. Then they can use that Cancer energy in a positive masculine way. Masculine meaning putting it to good use. Actually doing something with that feminine energy. They will reflect a deep emotional wisdom that is offered in non-manipulative ways. They will be self-empowered and seek to empower others. Sexually, they will be secure from within themselves and will no longer fear being sexually or emotionally vulnerable. They will encourage and support the emotional and sexual vulnerability of others. They will desire to emotionally and sexually unite with another so that the sexual experience becomes a source of emotional and psychic renewal. When this occurs, the Mars in Cancer person has realized the evolutionary intention of their soul. It's interesting, like a lot of this stuff too, when we look at like a lot of people in the consensus think that their prime of their life is the first half of their life. And when you read stuff like this, the prime of your life is actually the second half of your life. Because this is where I think you see a lot of older people that are very happy and content to be older rather than younger, because they move into this space of being extremely secure, not just because they've this understanding and the work, the psychological work that they've done, etc., but also the financial. They can move into maybe more financial. All this kind of goes together in the financial stability. By doing this, naturally, you should be able to partner up with people and have more financial stability because you've merged. Because if you don't know this, at least from my perspective, merging Scorpio is essential in our society. It's almost, for most people, it's essential to gain some stability over your life financially. It's not across the board, but for most people, that's part of the reason why it's normalized. And then you move into Sagittarius, and then you can live the quote-unquote, for lack of a better way of saying this, the good life. And begin to expand your consciousness because you have your fundamental needs met. And, as a young person, you can still do this as well, depending on the situation you're in. But that period, usually for most people between 18 and 30, when you transition from the home to your own home, that can be very troublesome, even for people in the consensus. Not very stabilizing. As their lives evolve, these individuals must embrace the Capricorn polarity, which is essentially what I'm talking about here. Taking responsibility. This will mean learning how to accept responsibility in their own actions, as he says here, to become totally self-determined, to become emotionally and sexually mature. And as I said, totally self-determined is very hard. It's very, very difficult. The reality is, it's very difficult to become totally self-determined alone in this life. For example, if I am doing something like astrology and I'm making $70,000 or $80,000 a year, or I'm making six figures and I live in a major city, maybe I can be self-determined, stabilized, feel good emotionally all by myself because I'm so passionate about the work and I'm helping people and I'm socializing with people. But this isn't the case for most people. They go to an office, etc., sitting in a cubicle. Very difficult to be totally self-determined alone and to be emotionally and sexually mature alone in that state. And then he says, and to access the causative factors for the various emotional states along with the sexual desires that manifest from them. So that kind of goes along with this Mars in Cancer being secure emotionally so that you can have these relationships, so that you can merge, so that you can start a family, so that you can be more mature. Famous people in Cancer. O.J. Simpson, or with Mars in Cancer, O.J. Simpson. I did do O.J. Simpson's chart. You can go back and look at that. If I'm not sure what I said, but You can go back and check his chart out if you want to see a Mars and Cancer person. And I'm going to leave it there. Next, we'll have Mars and Leo. And thanks for watching.